How often it's been said, you don't need to read another book, you need a bigger goal. That is, you don't need more knowledge, more planning, more strategizing, more thinking, a better template for notion. You need to act on what you already know you need to do. St. Maximus the Confessor, writing in the 7th century, said something that has stayed with me since I first read it nearly 40 years ago. He said, "Knowledge without practice is the theology of demons." That's a hard line, and I've come to believe it's exactly right. Last episode, we established that courage is the gateway virtue, the precondition for prudence, self-control, and justice to become real rather than theoretical in a man's life. You finished the sentence stem. You identified one thing that you've been avoiding because it genuinely scares you. Good. That was the right first move. This episode is about what happens next, or rather, what usually doesn't. Because knowing something and doing something are not the same thing, and the gap between them is wider and more populated than most men want to admit. There is an epidemic of passivity among men right now, and I don't use the word epidemic lightly. The Institute for Family Studies, in their 2026 report on America's demoralized men, documents what practitioners in the men's self-development arena have been seeing for years. A huge number of men, capable, intelligent men, are stuck in a kind of suspended animation, consuming rather than producing, watching rather than acting, planning rather than doing. The coping mechanisms are familiar. Doom scrolling, binge watching Netflix or sports ball, endless research into the thing that you're not actually doing, the productivity system you're building instead of working. Personally guilty of that one. I can't tell you all the time I spent setting up the perfect journal and the endless fascination with templates for ClickUp and Notion that I've been through. The podcast about discipline that you're listening to while sitting on the couch, that new men's self-development book you're reading instead of applying what the last book said. How often it's been said, you don't need to read another book, you need a bigger goal. That is, you don't need more knowledge, more planning, more strategizing, more thinking, a better template for notion. You need to act on what you already know you need to do. Men who stay in this passive mode often have a cluster of character traits that are worth naming because they're easily recognizable. Low self-esteem that compounds over time. An inclination to being led by whoever is loudest. Shallow or absent friendships. An inability to commit to anyone or anything. Lack of courage. A kind of creeping self-absorption that often masquerades as sensitivity. Prolonged passivity doesn't just fail to build a man, it actively diminishes him. So why does a capable man stay stuck? Several things are usually at work, and they often work together. Perfectionism is the most respectable sounding one. You won't begin until conditions are just right, until the plan is complete, until you're ready. Which is to say, until the risk of failure has been reduced to something you can tolerate. But conditions will never be right. The plan will never be complete. You'll never be ready in that sense. Perfection is just fear wearing a tailored suit. Fear of failure is its less disguised cousin. Better not to try than to try and fall short, because falling short would confirm what you secretly suspect about yourself. This is Aristotle's coward in modern dress. Not the man who trembles and runs, but the man who simply never steps into the arena. As Teddy Roosevelt called them, those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Information overwhelm is a common one now that we're all online. There are always more options, more opinions, more frameworks to consider, more experts to consult. The man who consumes information without acting on it has confused preparation with progress. They're not the same. And of course, imposter syndrome, the persistent sense of being unqualified, of being one exposure away from being found out. It keeps you small by convincing you that other people are there because they've earned the right to be there, and you haven't. That's a lie. Nobody feels qualified before they begin. I certainly didn't. You earn the qualification by actually doing the work. There is a story from the Desert Fathers that I like because it captures something essential about how transformation actually works. St. John the Dwarf, one of the great 4th century monks of the Egyptian desert, when he was a novice monk, a newbie, was given a task and obedience by his elder, Abba Pambo. Pambo took a dry stick, stuck it in the ground, and told John to water it every day. Now, what makes the story really incredible is that they lived 12 miles from the nearest river. Every day, John walked 12 miles to the river, filled his bucket, walked 12 miles back, and watered the stick. He did this every day for 3 years. And he was a dwarf with short legs. The stick was dead. It wasn't going to grow. John knew it, but he did what his Abba said anyway. At the end of 3 years, the stick put out leaves and bore fruit. And when the fruit was ripe, Abba Pambo gathered some of it together and took it to the other fathers in the monastery and said to them, "Behold the fruit of obedience." Now, I'm not making a claim about miracles here, though the fathers would. What I'm pointing to is the structure of the story. John was not asked to do something that made sense. He was not given a plan that guaranteed results. He was given a practice, a specific daily physical act, and told to do it faithfully and let the results be what they would be. You see, the transformation was in the doing, not in the outcome. The man who finished 3 years of daily obedience at a seemingly pointless task was not the same man who started it. This is not piety, this is psychology. And it's exactly what the research on habit formation and self-efficacy confirms 1600 years later. Albert Bandura, the Stanford psychologist who developed self-efficacy theory, identifies 4 sources from which genuine confidence is built. Mastery experiences, actually succeeding at difficult things. Number 2, vicarious modeling, watching other men succeed. Third, verbal persuasion, being told by credible people that you can do it. And number 4, the management of your own physiological states, that is, learning to act despite the anxiety rather than waiting for the anxiety to pass. The first of those 4 mastery experiences is the most powerful and the least replaceable. You cannot think your way into self-mastery. You cannot read about it or listen to it. You accumulate it by doing hard things and surviving them, by doing slightly harder things and surviving those, by building over time a body of evidence that you are a man who acts, who follows through, who does what he said he would do. James Clear in Atomic Habits makes an argument about compounding practice precise. A 1% improvement daily doubles your effectiveness in 72 days. The mathematics of small, consistent action are more powerful than any single power move. Sure, the power move feels better in the moment, but it's the small daily actions that really build the man. And here's something that some in the men's self-development arena tend to underemphasize. The body leads the mind. The physical practices, exercise, cold exposure, fasting, breath work, the regulation of sleep, these are not optional add-ons for the man who has already done the interior work. They are the foundation upon which the interior work becomes possible. The Orthodox spiritual tradition has always known this. We begin our spiritual observance with physical practices, with prostrations, with fasting, verbal prayer spoken out loud on the lips, because the body and the person are one. You cannot reform the mind while the body is undisciplined, because the body and the mind are not 2 things, they are one man. So, knowledge without practice is the theology of demons. St. Maximus is not being dramatic for effect. He's making a precise theological claim. A man who knows the good and does not do it hasn't just failed to act. He's used knowledge as a substitute for action, which is just a refined kind of self-deception. You can say all the right things, hold all the right opinions, read all the right books, listen to all the top podcasts, and remain exactly the same. The man this show is for is not that man, Or rather, he's not content to be that man. He wants the witness of his life to match what he knows and what he says. That's not a small ambition. It's the ambition that everything else in this series is built to serve. Before the next episode, the sentence to finish is this, and, as always, don't give me the noble answer, give me the true one. One small thing I've been putting off, something I could do today or this week without waiting for conditions to be right is... One small thing I've been putting off, something I could do today or this week without waiting for conditions to be right is... Write it down. Then do it. Not tomorrow, today. The Forge doesn't work on theory, it's a practice. In the next episode, we move from the foundation of courage into the first of the 4 masculine archetypes, the warrior, and what it means for you to embody disciplined action in service of something genuinely worth fighting for. Not aggression, not performance, the real thing. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Like this episode if you would. Pass it on to another man who might benefit from it. Leave a comment below if you care to. I'll see you next week. The Forge is open.